everyone, my name is Joanna and today I'm going to take you inside one of the most chilling psychological horror stories ever written, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. For the next few minutes, I don't want you to think of me as Joanna. I want you to imagine that I am a man desperately trying to prove that he is sane, while his old mind slowly betrays him. People say I am mad. Mad? No. I am nervous. Yes, very, very nervous, but not mad. In fact, my hearing is sharper than ever before. I hear sounds others cannot hear. The creaking of floorboards, the whisper of the wind, even the beating of a heart hidden in the darkness. And it all began in a quiet old house where I lived with an old man. Now, the old man had never harmed me. He had never insulted me. I cared for him. Yet there was one thing about him that filled me with dread. His eye. A pale blue eye covered by a thin film. An eye like a vulture's eye. Every time he looked at me, a chill ran down my spine. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself, it's only an eye. But the thought stayed with me. Day after day, night after night, until I could think of nothing else. Soon, I became convinced that if I could get rid of that eye, I could finally be free. So every night at midnight, while the old man slept, I carried a small lantern and crept towards his room. The house was silent. The hallway was dark. Only the moonlight slipped through the windows. Slowly, very slowly, I opened the bedroom door. I was careful, so careful that it sometimes took me nearly an hour just to place my head through the opening. Then I would shine a single thin ray of light into the room and watch him sleeping. For 7 nights I did this. 7 nights. And every night the eye remained closed. So I waited, because it was not the old man I hated, it was the eye. Then came the 8th night. The air felt colder than usual. The darkness seemed heavier. As I slowly opened my lantern, my thumb slipped. Click. The old man sat upright in bed. "Who's there?" he called. I froze. Not a movement, not a breath. For nearly an hour, we remained in silence. Then I heard it. Thump. A heartbeat, soft at first. Thump, thump. The old man's fear was growing, and somehow I could hear it. The sound grew louder and louder. I thought, what if the neighbors hear it? The heartbeat filled my ears. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, I couldn't take it anymore. I burst into the room. The old man screamed once. Only once. Then I dragged him to the floor and ended his life. The heartbeat continued for a few moments. Then silence. Complete silence. At last, the eye was gone. I felt relieved, victorious. Before dawn, I carefully hid the body beneath the wooden floorboards. Every trace disappeared. No blood, no evidence, nothing. I smiled. I believed I had committed the perfect crime. But just as morning arrived, there was a knock at the door. 3 police officers stood outside. A neighbor had heard a scream during the night. At first, I was not worried. I welcomed them inside. I showed them every room. I answered every question calmly. Eventually, I led them into the old man's bedroom. Feeling completely confident, I placed my chair directly above the floorboards, hiding the body. The officers sat down. They smiled, They talked pleasantly, and at first I joined their conversation. Everything seemed perfect. Then I heard it. Thump. I stopped speaking. Thump. There it was again. A faint sound. At first it was soft, like a watch hidden beneath cloth. But slowly it began to grow. Thump, thump, thump. I shifted in my chair. The officers continued talking. Could they hear it? Surely they could. The sound became louder. Thump! A drop of sweat rolled down my face. Thump! My hands began to tremble. The officers still smiled, still talked, still sat there calmly. And suddenly, a terrible thought entered my mind. They knew. They knew everything. They could hear the heartbeat. And they were mocking me. The sound filled my head. Thump, thump, thump. I stood up and began pacing. My breathing became faster. The room felt smaller. The officers continued smiling. The heartbeat grew louder. Thump, thump, thump. I pressed my hands against my ears, but I could still hear it. Thump, thump, thump. The sound pounded through my thoughts until I could barely think. My guilt was crushing me. My fear was consuming me. I could bear it no longer. And finally, I screamed. Villains! Stop pretending! I admit the deed. Tear up the floorboards! Here, here! It is the beating of his hideous heart. At that moment, everything was over. The truth had been revealed, and I finally realized something. It was not the police who defeated me. It was not evidence. It was not a witness. It was my own guilt. Looking back, the most frightening thing was never the murder itself. It was how fear and obsession slowly took control of my mind until I could no longer tell the difference between reality and imagination. I spent the entire story trying to prove that I was sane, but in the end, my own actions revealed the exact opposite. And that is why the memory of that beating heart still echoes even after the story ends. Thank you.